the fastest judgment is often the one that has waited the least for the truth. The wide stone plaza outside the United States Federal Courthouse was already alive before 8 o'clock on a clear Monday morning as attorneys hurried toward the entrance carrying leather briefcases. Courthouse employees greeted one another with familiar smiles, and reporters prepared for another day covering high-profile federal proceedings. Uniformed officers monitored the security perimeter while courthouse security cameras quietly observed every entrance, every conversation, and every ordinary moment, without favoring anyone who walked through the gates. Officer Ethan Walker had worked courthouse security for several years, and experience had taught him that the busiest mornings demanded the greatest attention. His responsibility was simple: protect the courthouse, enforce procedure, and never ignore behavior that required verification. As another group of visitors approached the main entrance, his attention settled on a professionally dressed woman walking alone with a dark leather briefcase in one hand and a case folder tucked neatly beneath her arm. She moved with calm confidence instead of urgency, occasionally pausing to allow others to pass before continuing toward the security checkpoint. That woman was Victoria Brooks, the United States attorney scheduled to lead an important federal meeting inside the courthouse that morning. Her charcoal business suit was elegant without attracting attention, and nothing about her appearance suggested the senior position she held within the Department of Justice. She preferred traveling and arriving without announcing her title because she believed public servants should never expect different treatment simply because of the office they represented. As Victoria reached the outer security area, Officer Walker stepped forward with a professional expression and politely requested that she stop for additional verification before entering the building. Victoria immediately complied, offering a courteous smile while placing her briefcase where instructed. "Of course, officer," she replied calmly. "Please let me know how I can help." Nearby attorneys slowed their pace for a moment before continuing through adjacent screening lanes, assuming the interaction was simply another routine security procedure. A television crew across the street filmed general courthouse footage for a morning news report, while courthouse security cameras silently captured every angle around the entrance with precise clarity. Officer Walker reviewed Victoria's identification before asking several standard questions regarding her appointment, destination inside the courthouse, and the purpose of her visit. Victoria answered each question clearly, respectfully, and without hesitation. Even so, a minor inconsistency involving a temporary visitor credential prompted Walker to begin an additional verification required under courthouse security policy. He explained the procedure professionally and asked Victoria to remain in the designated security area while confirmation was requested. Victoria nodded without complaint. She never mentioned her position. She never suggested that the process should move faster because of who she was. Instead, she stood quietly with remarkable patience, believing that public confidence in the justice system depended upon every official respecting the same rules expected of every citizen. As the verification continued, courthouse employees entering the building began noticing that the conversation had lasted longer than expected. A young law clerk glanced curiously toward the checkpoint before disappearing inside. Two deputy marshals walking through another entrance briefly observed the situation without interfering because nothing appeared unusual from their perspective. Officer Walker remained focused on his responsibilities, convinced that careful procedure protected both the courthouse and the people entering it. After receiving another request for additional confirmation through official communication channels, he respectfully informed Victoria that one more step would be necessary before she could proceed. She answered with the same composed voice she had maintained from the beginning. "I appreciate you taking the time to do your job carefully," she said. "Good decisions are usually made with patience." Her words lingered in the morning air as courthouse staff continued moving through the entrance, unaware that an important leadership meeting inside the building had already begun, asking why the United States attorney had not yet arrived. Hidden above the plaza, every security camera continued recording without emotion, preserving each passing second exactly as it happened, while the ordinary sounds of the courthouse blended into a quiet countdown toward a truth that no one standing outside had yet begun to imagine. 1 hour before the quiet exchange outside the courthouse began, Victoria Brooks left her apartment carrying the same worn leather briefcase she had used throughout most of her career. The early morning air was cool, and the streets of Washington were beginning to fill with commuters heading toward offices, government buildings, and courtrooms across the city. Victoria preferred arriving early to every meeting because she believed preparation reflected respect for everyone else's time. As the car stopped a short distance from the federal courthouse, she thanked the driver warmly before insisting on carrying her own belongings the rest of the way. She enjoyed walking the final few blocks because it reminded her that public service began long before anyone entered a courtroom. Along the sidewalk, she noticed a nervous young law student studying a printed courthouse directory while looking repeatedly at the wrong entrance. The student appeared overwhelmed, clutching a folder filled with legal documents and internship paperwork. Victoria walked over with a friendly smile and asked if she needed help. After listening carefully, she explained which entrance handled attorney admissions, where visitor screening was located, and which courtroom elevators would save valuable time. The student thanked her repeatedly, assuming she was simply another experienced attorney heading to work. Victoria wished her good luck on her first day and quietly continued toward the courthouse without mentioning that she would soon be leading one of the most important meetings inside the building. A few minutes later, she stopped at a small coffee stand across the street. The cashier accidentally entered the wrong order and apologized several times after noticing the mistake. Victoria simply smiled and replied, "Everyone has busy mornings. We can fix it together." The cashier thanked her for her kindness before handing her the corrected receipt. Those few words left a stronger impression than Victoria could possibly have imagined. As she crossed the plaza toward the courthouse, dozens of attorneys, courthouse employees, jurors, and visitors moved in every direction beneath the tall columns of the historic federal building. Security officers greeted familiar faces while courthouse employees prepared for another demanding day of hearings and official business. Hidden among the steady flow of ordinary activity, Victoria looked no different from countless other legal professionals entering the building. Her charcoal business suit was elegant but understated, her identification remained inside her briefcase, and her calm confidence attracted little attention. Inside the courthouse, Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds reviewed the morning schedule with Captain David Sullivan. A major coordination meeting involving federal prosecutors, investigators, and court administrators was scheduled to begin within the hour, and one seat at the conference table remained reserved for United States Attorney Victoria Brooks. Everyone expected her to arrive early, as she always did. At the nearby Federal Bureau of Investigation field office, Special Agent Lisa Grant completed several briefing notes before preparing to walk to the courthouse for the same meeting. She smiled after noticing that Victoria had already sent a message earlier that morning confirming she would arrive on schedule. Everything appeared completely routine. Back outside, Victoria approached the security entrance with the quiet dignity that had defined her entire career. She had always believed that titles belonged inside official proceedings rather than ordinary conversations, and she never expected special treatment simply because of the office she held. Every public servant, in her view, should willingly experience the same procedures expected of every citizen entering a federal building. As she stepped toward the security area, Officer Ethan Walker noticed her approach while carefully observing the growing crowd entering the courthouse. Recent security briefings had reminded every officer to verify any credential requiring additional confirmation without exception. Walker took those responsibilities seriously because he understood that consistency protected both the institution and the people it served. Neither he nor Victoria realized that the ordinary security review about to begin would soon become the defining lesson of the morning, while unseen security cameras quietly recorded every movement and every decision exactly as it unfolded. The additional verification continued with the same measured pace that defined every official procedure inside the federal courthouse. Yet each passing minute quietly transformed an ordinary security review into something that drew increasing attention from everyone nearby. Officer Ethan Walker remained focused on his responsibilities, carefully reviewing the visitor credential while requesting another confirmation through courthouse communications. His expression reflected concentration rather than frustration. Every decision he made was guided by the belief that consistency protected the integrity of the courthouse and everyone who entered it. Victoria Brooks remained exactly where she had been asked to stand, holding herself with calm dignity while waiting beside the security station. She placed her leather briefcase on the inspection table when requested, opened every compartment without hesitation, and answered every question clearly and respectfully. She never hurried the officer. She never questioned the process. She never mentioned her position inside the Department of Justice. Instead, she trusted that the same system she helped defend every day would eventually produce the correct answer. Around them, the steady flow of attorneys, courthouse employees, jurors, and visitors continued through neighboring screening lanes. Some glanced toward the extended conversation before continuing into the building, assuming the delay involved nothing more than routine courthouse security. A reporter preparing for coverage of another federal hearing briefly noticed the scene from across the plaza before returning attention to the camera crew setting up nearby. Above the entrance, security cameras silently documented every movement, every exchange, and every passing second with perfect accuracy. Officer Walker received another response through his communication device, indicating that the visitor credential required one additional confirmation before access could be granted. He looked toward Victoria and spoke with professional courtesy. "Thank you for your patience. We are waiting for one final verification." Victoria offered a reassuring smile. "I appreciate your professionalism, officer. Careful decisions usually take the right amount of time." Her answer surprised several people standing close enough to hear it. Many visitors became impatient after only a brief delay. Yet this woman appeared more concerned with respecting the process than protecting her own schedule. Inside the courthouse, the conference room reserved for the morning leadership meeting slowly filled with federal prosecutors, investigators, and senior administrators. Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds reviewed the agenda while Captain David Sullivan checked attendance. One chair remained empty. Michael glanced at the clock before asking quietly, "Has anyone heard from United States Attorney Brooks?" Assistant United States Attorney Daniel Price looked at his telephone and replied, "She confirmed her arrival this morning. She should already be inside the building." The room fell briefly silent before Michael asked a staff coordinator to verify whether she had entered through courthouse security. At nearly the same time, Special Agent Lisa Grant arrived through another entrance and learned that Victoria had not yet reached the meeting. Knowing Victoria's reputation for punctuality, Lisa immediately sensed that something unusual had interrupted an otherwise ordinary morning. She contacted courthouse operations requesting a location update while beginning to walk toward the main entrance herself. Outside, Officer Walker continued following established procedure exactly as he had been trained. Victoria remained composed, quietly observing the courthouse plaza where people hurried between hearings, conversations, and appointments beneath the bright morning sky. An elderly visitor waiting nearby noticed her calm demeanor and commented, "You certainly have remarkable patience." Victoria smiled gently before answering, "Everyone here has an important responsibility today. Mine includes respecting theirs." Those simple words lingered with the visitor long after the conversation ended. A courthouse operations coordinator soon received an automated notice indicating that the United States attorney scheduled for the leadership meeting still had not been recorded as entering the secure area. The coordinator immediately forwarded the information to Deputy Chief Reynolds while requesting confirmation from courthouse security. Unknown to nearly everyone outside the building, several official communications had already begun moving quietly through the federal system. Back at the security station, neither Officer Walker nor Victoria Brooks realized that the final pieces of the morning's puzzle were already falling into place, while every camera overlooking the courthouse entrance continued preserving an ordinary conversation that was only moments away from revealing an extraordinary truth. Inside the conference room, the quiet confidence that usually filled the Monday morning briefing gradually gave way to concern as another minute slipped past without Victoria Brooks taking her seat at the table. Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds checked the time once again before looking around the room. Everyone present understood that punctuality was one of Victoria's defining qualities. She had never developed a reputation for dramatic entrances or unnecessary delays. If she had not arrived, there was almost certainly a practical explanation, and finding that explanation quickly became the highest priority. Michael calmly instructed an administrative coordinator to contact courthouse security and verify whether Victoria had already entered through another checkpoint. Within moments, the coordinator returned with an unexpected answer. No confirmed entry had been recorded under her credentials. Captain David Sullivan immediately suggested checking every courthouse entrance because federal officials occasionally used different access points depending on scheduled meetings. At the same time, Special Agent Lisa Grant quietly stepped into the hallway and contacted courthouse operations using official communication channels. Her voice remained calm, but her questions became increasingly specific. She requested confirmation from every security station surrounding the courthouse and asked whether any visitor verification remained unresolved. Back outside, Officer Ethan Walker continued following established procedure exactly as he had been trained. The additional credential review remained active, and the response from the verification system still instructed him to wait for final confirmation before granting access. He understood that interrupting the process simply because someone appeared professional would defeat the entire purpose of courthouse security. Victoria Brooks remained remarkably composed beside the inspection area. She rested one hand lightly on her briefcase while watching courthouse employees continue their morning routines. The same young law student she had helped earlier recognized her across the plaza and offered a grateful wave before entering the building, completely unaware that the woman who had shown such simple kindness was now waiting outside because of an unresolved verification. Victoria smiled politely in return without drawing attention to herself. An older courthouse employee standing nearby quietly remarked that most people would have become frustrated after such a long delay. Victoria answered with the same quiet sincerity that had guided her entire career. The public deserves to know that every procedure is followed fairly. That principle matters most when it is inconvenient. Her response lingered in the minds of several people standing close enough to hear it. Hidden above the entrance, every security camera continued documenting the scene from multiple angles, preserving expressions, conversations, and official actions exactly as they occurred. None of the cameras understood the importance of the moment. They simply recorded facts without opinion, waiting for others to discover their meaning later. Inside courthouse operations, another notification appeared after staff compared the attendance roster with the morning meeting schedule. The system confirmed once again that United States Attorney Victoria Brooks had not checked into the secure area despite being expected nearly 20 minutes earlier. Deputy Chief Reynolds immediately instructed courthouse operations to locate her through standard administrative procedures before escalating the matter further. Lisa Grant received the same update only seconds later. She stopped walking for a brief moment, considering every possibility before requesting one additional piece of information. "Tell me if any security verification has taken longer than normal this morning," she said calmly. The operations specialist searched the live activity log and paused. One unresolved entry appeared at the main security checkpoint involving a professionally dressed female visitor whose credential required extended confirmation. The description was brief, but it immediately caught Lisa's attention. She thanked the specialist and turned toward the courthouse entrance with renewed purpose while informing Deputy Chief Reynolds that she believed they had finally found the source of the delay. Outside, Officer Walker remained unaware that several senior officials were now moving toward his location. He simply continued respecting the procedure he believed protected the courthouse every day. Victoria remained equally patient, never asking for special treatment, never revealing her office, and never allowing frustration to replace dignity. Around them, the ordinary rhythm of the federal courthouse continued uninterrupted, but beneath that calm surface an invisible countdown had already begun, and with every passing step drawing closer to the entrance, the truth was preparing to arrive before anyone standing at the security station realized that the morning was about to change forever. Special Agent Lisa Grant crossed the courthouse plaza with steady determination, her attention fixed on the main security checkpoint, as years of experience quietly connected details that had seemed unrelated only moments earlier. Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds and Captain David Sullivan followed several steps behind after leaving the conference room together, careful not to create unnecessary alarm among the visitors entering the building. None of them expected a crisis. They simply wanted to understand why the United States Attorney, whose professionalism was respected throughout the federal justice system, had still not appeared for a meeting she herself had organized. At the security station, Officer Ethan Walker continued monitoring the pending verification displayed on his terminal. The electronic system still indicated that final confirmation remained in progress, and until that response arrived, courthouse policy required him to maintain the existing security procedure. He looked toward Victoria Brooks with the same professional composure he had demonstrated since the beginning of their interaction. "Thank you again for your patience," he said respectfully. "The verification request is still being processed." Victoria answered with an encouraging smile that revealed neither frustration nor impatience. "I understand completely. Important decisions should never be rushed." Her calm response contrasted sharply with the hurried pace surrounding them as attorneys hurried toward courtrooms and courthouse employees balanced folders filled with legal documents while preparing for another demanding day. Several people who had noticed the extended delay began quietly wondering what required so much time, yet no one overheard anything suggesting conflict. From every visible angle, the exchange appeared orderly, respectful, and governed entirely by procedure. Above them, courthouse security cameras continued recording every word, every movement, and every expression with silent precision. As Lisa Grant approached the entrance, she immediately recognized Victoria standing beside the inspection area. She slowed her pace for a brief moment, observing the interaction before speaking. Nothing about Victoria's posture suggested resentment. She stood with quiet confidence, hands relaxed, patiently allowing the process to continue exactly as requested. Lisa found that detail especially meaningful because she understood Victoria better than most people. Throughout her career, Victoria had consistently reminded younger attorneys that respect for the rule of law began with respecting the same procedures expected of everyone else. Deputy Chief Reynolds arrived only seconds later and quietly asked Officer Walker whether the credential verification remained incomplete. Walker nodded and briefly explained the electronic confirmation sequence that had delayed authorization. Michael listened carefully without interrupting, recognizing that every action described matched standard courthouse policy. Captain Sullivan reviewed the terminal screen alongside Walker and confirmed that the verification request remained active inside the official system. There had been no shortcuts, no personal assumptions, and no attempt to bypass procedure. Everything had unfolded exactly as the policy manual required whenever additional confirmation became necessary. Inside the Courthouse Operations Center, another automated response finally appeared after several secure databases completed synchronized verification. The operations specialist reviewed the information twice before immediately forwarding the completed confirmation to the main security checkpoint with the highest administrative priority. At almost the same moment, an assistant inside the conference room informed the waiting officials that the verification process had finally concluded. Outside, the atmosphere remained calm, yet an unmistakable sense of anticipation quietly settled over those standing nearby. Several courthouse employees noticed Deputy Chief Reynolds and Captain Sullivan gathered at the security station and instinctively paused without interfering. Even Officer Walker sensed that something significant was about to happen, although he still believed the outcome would simply complete another routine verification. Victoria remained exactly where she had been from the beginning, never requesting recognition, never mentioning her office, and never attempting to influence the process through personal authority. She understood that genuine public trust depended upon equal treatment under the law, especially when no one knew who you were. Then a soft notification sounded from the security terminal. Officer Walker looked down as the verification status changed from pending to confirmed. Before he could finish reading the complete administrative message, Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds lifted his eyes toward Victoria with immediate recognition, and the expressions on the faces of everyone arriving at the checkpoint subtly changed, signaling that the ordinary morning was about to reveal a truth far greater than anyone had expected. For one quiet second, the sounds of the courthouse seemed to fade beneath the weight of a single notification appearing on the security terminal. Officer Ethan Walker lowered his eyes to the screen and carefully read the completed verification exactly as it had been transmitted through the secure federal system. The administrative message contained no dramatic language, no flashing warnings, and no emotional commentary. It simply confirmed the identity of the visitor standing patiently beside the inspection station. Before Walker could fully process what he was reading, Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds stepped forward with unmistakable recognition and offered a respectful nod. "Good morning, United States Attorney Brooks, he said with calm professionalism. We have been looking for you. I sincerely apologize for the delay. Your leadership meeting is waiting for your arrival. The words settled over the security checkpoint with remarkable silence. Several courthouse employees who happened to be standing nearby instinctively paused where they were. Special Agent Lisa Grant smiled warmly as she approached Victoria. We were beginning to wonder what could possibly keep you from being early, she said. Victoria returned the smile with quiet grace. It appears the security team was doing exactly what they were trained to do. Her answer carried neither criticism nor sarcasm. It reflected only the same steady respect for public service that had guided every decision she had made throughout her career. Officer Walker slowly looked up from the terminal toward Victoria Brooks, realizing for the first time that the woman who had spent the last several minutes patiently answering every question without mentioning her title was the senior federal prosecutor responsible for many of the most significant cases handled inside the courthouse. His expression shifted from concentration to genuine surprise, followed almost immediately by thoughtful reflection. He understood that every conversation, every instruction, and every procedural step had unfolded beneath the watchful eyes of courthouse security cameras that had quietly documented the entire interaction from beginning to end. Around the plaza, several uniformed officers noticed Deputy Chief Reynolds greeting Victoria with formal respect. Without receiving any verbal instruction, they instinctively straightened their posture as she prepared to continue toward the courthouse entrance. It was not a gesture demanded by authority. It was a professional acknowledgement of the office she represented and the responsibilities she carried on behalf of the public. Victoria acknowledged each officer with a polite nod rather than expecting attention to remain focused on herself. She believed respect was most meaningful when returned with humility. Deputy Chief Reynolds turned toward Officer Walker with a calm expression. Officer, thank you for following established procedure. Security verification exists for a reason. Those words surprised Walker almost as much as the identity confirmation itself. He had expected immediate criticism for delaying such an important official. Instead, the deputy chief recognized that courthouse security depended upon officers applying the same standards consistently, regardless of appearance, reputation, or position. Walker answered respectfully, Sir, I regret the inconvenience caused to United States Attorney Brooks. Before Michael Reynolds could respond, Victoria gently spoke. Officer Walker, you treated me professionally throughout the entire process. You explained every step, remained respectful, and followed policy as it was presented to you. Public confidence depends on officers who take their responsibilities seriously. The tension surrounding the checkpoint immediately softened. Several employees who had quietly observed the exchange exchanged thoughtful glances as they recognized that the moment had become something larger than a delayed meeting. It had become a demonstration of how professionalism could survive even under unexpected circumstances. Special Agent Lisa Grant quietly looked toward the security cameras mounted above the entrance before saying, The recordings will show exactly what happened today. Victoria nodded in agreement. That is precisely why careful procedure matters, she replied. Facts have a way of speaking clearly when people allow them to. With the verification now complete, Officer Walker respectfully returned Victoria's briefcase and visitor materials before opening the secure entrance. As Victoria stepped toward the courthouse doors beside Deputy Chief Reynolds, the ordinary rhythm of the morning resumed around them. Yet many of those who had witnessed the exchange carried away a lesson that would remain with them long after the meeting inside the courthouse had ended, because true authority had arrived without announcing itself, and true character had revealed itself long before anyone discovered the title attached to the name. The leadership meeting inside the courthouse began later than planned, but the conversation that morning extended far beyond the conference room walls. While senior officials discussed the day's agenda, another process quietly unfolded behind the scenes with the same commitment to accuracy that defined every federal institution. Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds requested a routine administrative review of the extended security verification, not because anyone had accused an officer of misconduct, but because every unusual delay offered an opportunity to improve future procedures. The request automatically included security camera recordings, communication logs, electronic verification records, and written observations from everyone directly involved. Facts, rather than assumptions, would guide every conclusion. In the Courthouse Operations Center, technicians synchronized footage captured from multiple security cameras overlooking the entrance plaza. The recordings showed Victoria Brooks arriving calmly, cooperating immediately with every instruction, answering questions respectfully, and waiting with remarkable patience while the verification process continued. There was no attempt to bypass security, no demand for special treatment, and no indication that she had used her position to influence the outcome. Every minute confirmed the same quiet professionalism witnessed by those standing nearby. Communication records painted an equally complete picture. Officer Ethan Walker had followed each required step exactly as outlined in courthouse policy. Every request for verification had been submitted through official channels. Every response had been documented, and every delay had resulted from the electronic confirmation process rather than any personal decision. Captain David Sullivan reviewed the timeline carefully before nodding with approval. The procedure was followed correctly, he observed. Now we need to understand why the confirmation system required additional time. Across the hallway, Special Agent Lisa Grant watched portions of the security footage with thoughtful attention. What stood out most was not the delay itself, but Victoria's unwavering composure from beginning to end. Lisa quietly remarked, "Leadership is easiest to recognize when nobody knows who you are." Deputy Chief Reynolds agreed. "That recording will become an excellent training example," he replied. "Not because someone failed, but because everyone can learn something valuable from it." Meanwhile, Victoria Brooks completed the morning meeting exactly as she had planned before arriving at the courthouse. She spoke about cooperation between federal agencies, public trust, and the responsibility carried by every person working within the justice system. She never mentioned the events outside the security entrance. She believed the meeting existed to serve the public, not to revisit her own experience. Yet several officials in the room found themselves reflecting on the quiet example she had already demonstrated before the meeting even began. Later that afternoon, Officer Ethan Walker was invited to meet briefly with Deputy Chief Reynolds. Expecting criticism, he entered the office with quiet humility. Instead, Michael greeted him with a calm expression and invited him to review the complete verification timeline together. They examined the electronic records, the communication history, and selected portions of the security footage. Every detail confirmed the same conclusion. Walker had remained respectful throughout the interaction and had consistently followed policy. Michael then pointed toward one moment captured on the recording where Victoria thanked the officer for taking his responsibilities seriously despite the inconvenience. "Notice what happened here," he said. "She strengthened public confidence instead of weakening it. That is what true public service looks like." Walker watched the footage in thoughtful silence. He realized that professionalism was measured not only by enforcing rules, but also by the manner in which those rules were carried out. Outside the courthouse, life continued as usual. Attorneys hurried to afternoon hearings, visitors entered through the same security checkpoint, and officers greeted each person with renewed attention. The cameras above the entrance continued recording another ordinary day without preference or emotion, preserving facts exactly as they unfolded. Yet for everyone who later reviewed that morning's events, the recordings documented something greater than a delayed arrival. They revealed how patience, respect, accountability, and equal treatment could transform an unexpected misunderstanding into a lesson that strengthened an entire institution, reminding everyone that justice begins long before a judge enters a courtroom or an attorney stands before a jury, because it first appears in the ordinary choices people make when they believe no one important is watching. During the weeks that followed, the morning outside the federal courthouse gradually evolved from an unusual security delay into one of the most valuable professional case studies within the courthouse administration. Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds authorized a series of internal training sessions built around the official timeline, communication records, and security footage, emphasizing that the purpose was never to assign blame, but to strengthen consistency, judgment, and public confidence. Every supervisor agreed that the events demonstrated something rarely captured so clearly. The procedures themselves had worked, yet the experience also revealed opportunities to improve communication between courthouse operations, security personnel, and federal leadership when credential verification involved senior officials. Officer Ethan Walker attended every training session with complete attention. Rather than becoming defensive, he carefully listened as instructors reviewed each stage of the verification process. The discussions focused on professionalism, respectful communication, procedural transparency, and maintaining dignity for every visitor regardless of appearance, profession, or background. Walker recognized that the greatest lesson had nothing to do with titles. It involved remembering that every individual standing at a security checkpoint deserved the same patience and respect expected inside the courtroom itself. Victoria Brooks received several invitations to submit a formal complaint regarding the extended delay. She respectfully declined every one of them. Instead, she requested an opportunity to speak directly with the training committee. When she entered the courthouse classroom a few days later, dozens of officers, supervisors, and courthouse employees quietly stood to welcome her. She thanked them for their service before asking everyone to take their seats. There was no dramatic speech, no criticism, and no effort to place herself at the center of attention. Instead, she spoke with the quiet confidence that had defined every moment of that morning. "The public does not judge our institutions only by the decisions we reach," she began. "They also judge us by how we treat people while those decisions are being made." The room became completely silent. Victoria continued by explaining that equal treatment under the law required consistency, especially when the identity of the person standing in front of an officer remained unknown. She praised Officer Walker for remaining respectful throughout the entire verification process, pointing out that courtesy and professionalism had prevented an ordinary misunderstanding from becoming an unnecessary conflict. She also encouraged supervisors to continue improving communication systems so that future verifications could be completed more efficiently without compromising security. Deputy Chief Reynolds later remarked that her presentation reflected the very principles every public servant hoped to represent. Following the session, several younger officers approached Victoria to thank her personally for choosing education instead of criticism. She responded with the same humility she had shown outside the courthouse. "Every profession grows stronger when people are willing to learn together," she said. Officer Walker also asked for a brief private conversation before she departed. Looking directly at Victoria, he thanked her for the grace she had shown throughout the experience. "You taught me something I will carry for the rest of my career," he admitted sincerely. Victoria smiled warmly before replying. "We both learned something important that morning. Good institutions become great institutions when people improve instead of protecting their pride." Those words remained with Walker long after the conversation ended. Over the following months, updated communication procedures were introduced throughout the courthouse security system. Verification requests involving official credentials moved more efficiently between departments. Supervisors received earlier notifications when extended reviews occurred, and additional training emphasized respectful explanations whenever delays became necessary. None of those improvements replaced existing security standards. Instead, they strengthened them by combining careful procedure with clear communication and consistent professionalism. Visitors entering the courthouse rarely noticed the changes, yet those working behind the scenes understood that an ordinary morning had quietly reshaped the way the institution approached both security and public trust. The security cameras above the entrance continued recording countless ordinary days just as they always had, but everyone who remembered that morning understood a simple truth. Policies protect buildings, procedures protect institutions, but character is what protects the public's confidence in both, and that confidence is earned one respectful conversation at a time. 6 months later, the federal courthouse welcomed another class of newly assigned security officers on a bright autumn morning, and the atmosphere felt both familiar and quietly transformed. The entrance plaza remained as busy as ever. Attorneys hurried toward hearings with briefcases in hand. Courthouse employees exchanged greetings before beginning another demanding day, and visitors passed beneath the same security cameras that had continued recording every ordinary moment without interruption. Yet those responsible for protecting the courthouse now approached their responsibilities with an even deeper appreciation for the balance between vigilance and respect. Officer Ethan Walker stood at the front of the training room wearing the same uniform he had worn on that unforgettable morning, but the confidence in his voice now reflected experience, shaped by humility rather than routine alone. As part of the orientation program, every new officer viewed the official training presentation created from the verified timeline, communication records, and security footage preserved by the courthouse. Walker carefully explained each stage of the event, emphasizing that the lesson had never been about recognizing an important title. Every person who walks through these doors deserves professionalism, he told the class. You may never know who someone is, and that should never determine how respectfully you treat them. Our responsibility is to protect this courthouse with consistency, fairness, and dignity every single day. The room remained completely silent as the new officers listened. Some took notes while others reflected on the quiet importance of those words. Later that afternoon, the courthouse hosted a community program celebrating cooperation between law enforcement, the courts, and the public. Judges, prosecutors, investigators, security officers, students, and local residents gathered inside the ceremonial courtroom to recognize the people whose daily work often went unnoticed. Deputy Chief Michael Reynolds welcomed everyone before inviting United States Attorney Victoria Brooks to deliver the keynote remarks. As she approached the podium, the audience greeted her with warm applause, not because of her title alone, but because of the integrity she had demonstrated when no one knew who she was. Victoria thanked the audience before speaking about the meaning of public trust. Justice is not measured only by verdicts, she said. It is measured by the ordinary moments when people choose fairness over assumptions, patience over pride, and respect over convenience. Institutions become worthy of confidence when every individual is treated with equal dignity before the truth is fully known. Her words resonated throughout the courtroom because everyone present understood they reflected lived experience rather than prepared rhetoric. After the ceremony concluded, Victoria stepped into the courthouse lobby where Officer Walker happened to be finishing his responsibilities for the day. Their eyes met, and both smiled warmly. Walker walked forward and thanked her once again for the lesson she had given him without ever intending to teach one. Victoria extended her hand, and he accepted it with sincere gratitude. I appreciate the way you chose growth, she said. That decision strengthened more than one career. It strengthened an entire institution. Walker nodded thoughtfully before replying. I believed I was protecting a building that morning. Now I understand that I was also responsible for protecting the public's confidence in it. Nearby, several young officers observed the brief exchange without interrupting. They saw no embarrassment, no resentment, and no lingering tension. They witnessed mutual respect earned through professionalism, accountability, and character. As the sun settled lower beyond the courthouse steps, visitors continued entering and leaving beneath the same silent security cameras that had faithfully preserved the truth months earlier. Nothing about the building itself had changed, yet the people within it carried a clearer understanding of what justice truly required. Long after the courthouse lights began to glow against the evening sky, one lesson remained stronger than every official title, every badge, and every position of authority. Real power never announces itself first. It quietly reveals itself through character, and when truth finally arrives, genuine respect rises on its own.